I don't know.
Can we not make jokes?
It's kind of
Cringe.
I think my only issue was that they were starting to stack. It's like we're starting to see a pattern of the humor that you like.
I brought it up because I thought it was like a little cringy to think about now. And like more.
I know. It's like I literally the ticker about the murdering guy with.
I sent one to my stepmom, and she watched not just that one. She watched all three and said they were hilarious because they were. They're relatable.
Mentally incapacitated.
No,
it's so funny. Murder.
They're relatable. That's why.
Man.
Something in there's usable,
I guess.
Good luck whoever's editing this one. How you guys doing?
It's a day.
Good.
Today's a day.
Today is a day.
Kind of sad I'm here.
I'm happy that I'm alive.
No, I'm fine. I'm glad I'm here.
How about you? How about you, listener?
How are you doing?
Let us know in the
You
comments.
okay?
Special
We
individual.
want to know if you're okay.
Yeah. Someone's like, I don't know, just go like just this is playing in the background. Something terrible's going on. They're just like, it's awful. It's so awful. No.
Yeah,
Anarchy.
Well, I mean, I usually
tell
listen
us
to
your life
podcasts.
story here at TRIFLIX, where we do video production and stuff. We can help you with your problems.
Yeah, if you've been through something traumatic, we'd love to put it on video and then share it with the world.
Make it dramatized.
We're good at making videos. We're not great at public speaking. All right, we're just here for a good time, not a long time.
That's true. We're not inspirational speakers by any means.
You come back.
Speechers.
You come back every week, man. You come hang out with us because we just like to chill.
Yeah.
And talk about whatever every other week.
Welcome to the Teamcast. It's just the three of us today.
What
Three
are-
of us being Cole. Cole is myself.
That's
Hi,
Cole.
I'm Cole.
Hey, Cole.
Who's that talking?
I'm David.
Hi, David.
I do stuff.
It's nice to meet you. Who's this guy? Sir, we're going to need you to speak up.
My name's Tristan, and I'm here.
Wow, this podcast is
There's
going
a
weird.
theme. You know what? If you've made it this far in the episode, I commend you, and I appreciate you being here. There's much more substance to be had. Just hang in tight, okay?
This is our,
it's
our
coming up.
best episode, and if you don't believe it, that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Believe in us.
Believe it.
There's a reason. Believe in us, please.
So last time we were all here, we were talking about making our podcast.
Just reading directly off the script.
I'm just trying to get something on the rails here.
I love
No,
it.
David, I'm sorry. I'm
And
sorry.
Here we go.
I'm sorry to critique your offerings to the podcast. Please continue. please
Let's talk about that for a bit.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let's do that.
Everybody, I would say everybody has a fair bit of like self-criticism in what they do.
I love it.
So we are jumping to the segue.
I don't know.
Not the one you were talking about.
I just tried to have a podcast and
No.
to keep having a meta conversation in the podcast.
Let's do it. It could have flowed great, but then you just had to. But
I didn't know
Go
what-
ahead.
So we're going to have a conversation now, Tristan. It's going to be me, it's going to be you, and then Cole might say something too,
No.
and that's just how it's going to work.
Okay, I'm cutting you off. David, give us some context as to what you're talking about with the whole self-confidence,
So, well, as creators in general, we can like pull it back just a little bit. I think everybody has self-criticism in what they do, and I think we should maybe talk about that too as well.
Yeah.
But the main topic that we kind of just referenced is I also have a lot of self-criticism, but it's all up in my head. And I don't really talk about it with everybody because I realize it's kind of stupid self-criticism, and I think that's a fair assessment. A lot of what we think about ourselves is kind of BS, and we need to learn to suppress that in some way and like just be happy with who we are, and like if there's real things to be addressed, you address them. And sometimes you just let it get to your head though. And one time that happened. But you never will see it. Maybe we'll have a clip of it.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. It's in the vault, so.
Mm-hmm.
Was it on the tail end of the other podcast? Or
It was the abandoned podcast.
Yeah.
That nobody will know about.
Yeah.
Except for right now.
Oh yeah.
Except for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had an abandoned podcast. That's all we're gonna say. We shot a podcast, and for a couple different reasons, all on our side, we decided to scrap it and redo it, which we all felt was a good decision. We came to that consensus.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and everybody was off their game. That's all there was to it.
Yeah.
Everybody's got off nights, off days.
Unlike today.
Everybody's on it today.
This is a different type of.
We're on something else.
We weren't that podcast. We weren't off the rails. We didn't even know there were rails.
Yeah, the rails did not exist. They were gone.
Yeah.
So we had a little mishap towards the end, and
It's mainly with me.
but we all learned something.
Yeah, we all learned things.
Yeah, it was
Sometimes.
No, we did.
Yeah.
You know, there's still an evolving dynamic between the three of us.
Yeah.
And I think that'll always be the case. You guys, David and Tristan, you guys have known each other longer than I've known you. And, that goes both ways, right? So I think everybody's still, even a couple years into this, we're still getting to know each other and learning some of the ins and outs of dealing with each other. And Tristan and I have issues sometimes being sensitive towards others.
Because we were never hugged as children.
Yeah. To be fair, the work dynamic, I think, is like we're all kind of like brothers, and like if when you're brothers in that type of sense, you like to give each other crap a lot, and that's fine. The issue was I was already internally giving myself a lot of crap, and I was just falling into a horrible mood for no reason whatsoever. But it was all inside, so nobody knew. And then, there was some flack thrown my way. I was like, oh, all of the horrible things I was thinking is true.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a sucky person. And so I just shut down. That's kind of my normal reaction is like, I don't want to lash out at anybody. I'm just going to shut down and just not let any of it out because I don't want to be bad.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I noticed it was like we were getting towards the end, and we were getting zero input.
Yeah.
And and if you've listened to any of our podcasts, that is not the way it goes, David, not at all. And so it was like, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like
Tristan
Conan
didn't.
O'Brien and Andy just sits there and stares the whole time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So
Andy Richter just really depressed off to the side.
just nothing.
Yeah. So
So
I don't
we
know what's
addressed
going
it
on
after
that
the
day, but we all talked it out because
Yeah.
I learned how to handle things. At least how I handle things. Like if I know something's wrong and I can't handle it, I kind of just shut down and then I just take time to process it. And then it took like 30 minutes afterwards to process, and I was able to communicate how I felt and then eventually come to a normal, rational conclusion where nothing bad happened, which is a good case scenario, I don't think.
Yeah.
well, that's why I said we all kind of learned something about each other. Like Tristan's just plain oblivious.
I caught on to it halfway through. I just wasn't worried about it because I don't assume what others think. And if he has a problem, he'll talk to me about it. And if not him, but just in general, if somebody has a problem with me, they'll talk to me about it. And if not, then it must not have been that serious.
Well, I just thought it was funny when we went to talk about it, and you're like, "Huh? There was a problem?"
Well, to me, it's more of just like understanding why it bothers somebody else, because things that bother other people aren't the same things that bother me. So it's like I don't understand why you're upset.
Yeah.
Or like why you, like in your case it was like about self-doubt. So it's like, I mean, everybody has self-doubt, but it's like I don't think I've ever had it in that same way where it's like, oh, I can relate to this, so I understand.
Sure.
I mean, you can have empathy with things you don't understand, but it's like you have to explain it to me a little bit for me to grasp what I'm trying to get.
And I didn't make it like visibly clear, like during when it happened, what
Stop
or
the
how or
podcast.
why anything happened. It's just at one point I just went, boop.
You're like, hey, you listen here. I don't like that one bit. And like as we have a guest in here, and you're just like just chilling in the corner.
Yeah. And there wasn't anything where I could say like, hey, I didn't like that. It was nothing that anybody did. It was just like I internally was like, I am trash.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, that was why it was nice to have the conversation, because we could all kind of be like, okay, look, like you're not trash. Okay. and be there for each other. Although my first reaction was screw you.
Yeah, I know.
Screw you. Why do you feel bad?
I saw it in your eyes, and then you went dad mode.
Yeah.
You're like, I have kids, and I have to help them mature.
I shut it down. I knew what was going on. I was like,
yeah, mature conversation time.
It always should be that way. It's just sometimes that's not the first reaction.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to throw your employees out the window. It's like, I need a new employee.
If you don't want to be on the podcast, then don't be on the podcast.
It's like, no, that's not.
No, it doesn't. It's just it's like, well, if you don't like me as a dad, I don't have to be your dad.
You can get a new dad.
Doesn't work that way. I mean, I guess technically it could.
Yeah. And
you're not my dad.
Most of those doubts I was having were like from a creative point of view. It was like, I want to be creative, and I always kind of felt like I lack in that area from. There's no reason for me to think that. It's just my own self-doubt. But I think every creator has that kind of sense of imposter syndrome, where it's like, I don't know if I'm ever, like, I don't think I'm a real artist, or I'm ever really creating something creative. So have you ever had moments like that, like in the office or making things creatively?
I from my side of it, I definitely had that recently and we'll be candid. We won't name names, but we lost a client recently, and that was one of those things. And Tristan knew how I was feeling about it, but I definitely right off the bat, I'm like, we're failures.
Yeah,
this company's never gonna get off the ground. This is it. This is the end. Maybe we're not as good as I thought. Because my first thought usually is I'm awesome, but
I envy you.
then there's eventually those days where I'm kind of like, never mind, because it creeps in no matter what. But it was like moments like that where we were riding a high, and all of a sudden it just kind of hit, and that one hurt a lot, and it definitely gave me a good amount of like self-doubt towards the business and stuff, which is a big deal for me, and I think for all of us.
Yeah. I do get it sometimes. Like in that case, it bummed me out because it's not that I thought we weren't, qualified or anything, or our work wasn't good. Like it's like, oh, maybe I overestimate our abilities. I don't think that was how I took it at all. It's just, it frustrates me. Or I mean, it's like a creative person thing, but like I feel like it frustrates creatives in general whenever you make something that you're proud of and then people don't get it. And it's like, I know this is good technically, or just maybe like an art perspective or something. Somebody just doesn't like it. It's like, that happens in art all the time. Like there's a reason people like go from all over the world to the Louvre and to these museums, and they look at like these beautiful art pieces, and it's like not everybody does that. People with the money still choose not to do that, and it's just because like it's not for them.
I get it.
So to me, it's frustrating whenever you work on something really hard and like it's not received, like you love it and other people don't, and it's like, I don't think it's bad. I really like the piece, and it just frustrates me whenever other people don't appreciate it as much. So maybe that's still some type of imposter syndrome, because it's like I feel like there's just like a disconnect between like I'm not successful in a way that I would like to be, and that's frustrating. But
I get that.
That's a nice way to look at it, though.
Yeah.
It's not me that's wrong. It's you. You're all wrong. I mean, if there's critique, if there's criticism, I'll take it and like, hey, can we apply this and make it better? But sometimes the criticism isn't valid. Like, maybe somebody doesn't know more than you. Sometimes they do.
I was
true.
Speaking of like artistic intent and like things like that with expectations, there's such a thing as like evil feedback or evil data, and I just watched a video about it where it was in video game area.
The dislike button.
Yes, it's a dislike button.
It's
Thank
evil
you, YouTube.
Data.
We love you, YouTube, for removing the dislike button. No,
I can't find any dang tutorials.
People were designing a game, and it was like two different sides. It was like, I don't know, like the Nazis versus the Allies, and they on both sides they have this gun, and they were like the visual equivalents of what they had at the time. But in the game code, the guns were identical for like how much damage they did to players and how like good they were to use. But they had different sound effects. And people thought that the ally weapon was better. It was like the Thompson because it sounded more punchy and like more different sound effects were happening. Whereas like the Nazi version, it sounded really quiet and worse. And so they thought that the Thompson was better, and they were actually playing better with that gun because they were more confident in what they were shooting with.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And so they were being more aggressive with it and being like their whole play style is being changed, even though internally both of them were identical aside from sound effects, which I thought was interesting because a lot of artistic direction can play a role in how people just play a game or interpret the art.
Yeah, it's a preconceived notion, and that makes sense.
So especially with like movies and everything, stuff can be like similar, but just one little thing you can tweak, and that can just make all the difference for the viewer and how they interpret how things are being presented to them.
Oh, we know that one.
Yeah. Well, that was like, going back to the point that I was just making on like art being subjective and not well received. And it's like, when you're in those positions, it's something we're working through right now, is like, you can either just keep putting it out and maybe it's like a lottery system, maybe it'll eventually click. But like, if you want to find something a little bit quicker in terms of success and however you define that, maybe you have to start changing it up. Yeah. And that's something we've been talking about internally of like, how can we cater towards the demographic of people that want to watch like the creative things that we do, not the client work, but like the actual pieces that we enjoy making for fun. And it's like, what is it that people want to see? And you look at analytics on videos that you make and thumbnails and all the data and the SEO and what are people searching? What are the trends? And it's like, all right, well, people like this and we prefer to do this. And they're two separate things. And it's like, well, how can we compromise? Because it's a relationship of mutual benefit. They get something out of watching the video and we get risen up in algorithm searches, and it helps us stand out a little more, helps us work on marketing. So it's like, how can we compromise and find a balance between what we want to do and what people want to watch? And I feel like that's, going off your point, I feel like that's just trying to understand the art of the viewer and what it is that they want out of their experience. You know, everybody has a different expectation. And
the reason why they called that evil data was like the players were saying, hey, this gun is better than this other gun. And then they looked at the actual data where it's like, oh, players are doing better with this gun. So the natural conclusion is make that other gun stronger, even though it was just the sound effects that were changing it. So like, even when you have data that like is confirming itself, people say this is bad, and then they look at the data, it's like, oh yeah, they're doing worse with X versus Y. Sometimes the natural conclusion is to do the wrong thing to try to fix the situation, where it was like artistically you were just doing something that made people behave differently. Yeah. Which is crazy to think about, like how data can actually actively work against you if you are just only looking at that with like blinders on. Yeah. Right. It's like maybe there's a completely different solution to this problem because that isn't even a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, definitely the case. I mean, your thoughts drive your emotions and your emotions drive habits. So if, I mean, in cinema, you'll see this a lot with like music where they play certain scores and things like that. And then
play to your emotion.
You can completely change the music and the scene's identical and it'll change how you feel as you're experiencing it. Right. So, I mean, that's just another example of like, how can we not manipulate, but like, how can we invoke an emotion in somebody and get the response that we would hope for? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, shoot, good data, bad data, I guess.
Yeah. All the way down to the colors and the thumbnails, right?
Yeah, I was going to say thumbnails. That's a huge thing. Huge. Like, people they change titles or videos like constantly for like the first week. They change the thumbnail like 2 or 3 times just to see what works best. Because like people just don't know. They like, maybe this one will do better. Maybe this one will do better. And it's just crazy because like there's those issues where you just can't account for like how people are going to react.
Yeah.
Like Vitalian.
Dude, it wasn't.
The viewers are wrong.
Yeah.
Vitalian was
We
great.
It
should
was
have-
beautiful.
We should have picked different music.
Would have fixed everything.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Oh man. So Vitalian BTS is out. Go watch it.
Yeah, Vitalian
Yes.
BTS. I really liked it. I don't know. You guys probably haven't watched it in a while. I watch it every once in a while just because it came out, what, last week? 2 weeks ago? Last week.
Yeah, it was last week.
Last week.
Yep. No, it's good.
Yeah,
Yep.
we had Andrew on the podcast last week, who was the guy operating the camera for the BTS. That
That'll
also
come
came
out at
out
some
last
random
week.
time you won't know about.
The BTS? Yeah.
Andrew's podcast.
Oh,
They're
that's
both
true.
out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Didn't
Yeah.
they come out last week?
Yeah, they're both out.
I watched part of it.
Oh.
But I see the problem is we watch videos and I'm like, wait,
know.
was that a review pass or was that
Yeah.
at my house?
No, I get it. We all work in conjunction. I mean, essentially,
Yeah.
David takes the beginning of everything, he produces it here live, takes the podcast, adds intros and outros to it, throws on the server, and then I make all the graphics and things and distribute it. So the funny thing is it kind of, I get it. But the
Yeah.
Vitalian BTS Andrew Teo podcast came out, good to go.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Came out last week. Go check them out.
So that's something that I've like wanted to talk about for a while is like structures and schedules, and maybe we'll go more detail on it because I'm a nerd and that stuff's fun to me.
Yay.
But
We've talked a lot about organization and how
yeah.
we're structuring the company.
Yeah.
I think this is key to that.
yeah, I mean we can't be productive without a little bit of that playing some involvement. But
We figured that one out,
yeah, we had to.
right?
So on YouTube, you get recommendations from videos, even videos that you upload. So sometimes if you're like logged in on your account, it'll like pop up videos that you uploaded years ago. And I saw one come up recently, maybe a couple days ago, 2-3 days ago. And it was from 2 or 3 years ago. It was before Cole. You were in the video. And it's a video where when I say you, I was referring to David for audio listeners.
Yeah.
David's in the video.
We pointed at him.
And it was a video where I'm down in my basement and I hadn't been able to upload anything in a long time because trying to do everything by myself. David was helping out with client work, but we just didn't have the time to make fun stuff anymore. And in the video, I was like, why is YouTube and cinema in general, why is everything about sequels? Why is everything about branding and marketing? Like, what happened to just like going out and grabbing a camera with your friend when you're in high school or middle school or whatever and just making dumb content and talking about how I wanted to get back to doing that. And for a long time, we weren't even able to. Like, I put that video out in like a 1 year spurt of still not being able to do it. So 2-3 years go by, and last week was the first week where we're actually able to make progress of that. Of like, we put together a dumb little video. One of our good friends that we've, you've been friends with since childhood. I've been friends with for a lot of like my adult life of like maturing, living out on my own. And he's just a really good guy, and he was able to be a part of that. And it was really cool too, because he was a part of that process 3 or 4 years ago when we were making the short films in the basement, like just a bunch of goofballs making these BTSs. And it's like, to me, that is like our biggest accomplishment of last year. I mean, we merged a business and everything, but like, to me, the creative freedom of like, we're finally moving in a direction that I want the company to go in. And like, we've been profitable. We've been doing good on our own, like David and I, and back when we had Ben, a couple of interns in and out. And then with Cole, he was doing great before, and it's like we merged and we're making more money now and all this, but it's like, outside of making money, what are we really doing?
Right.
It's like, we're making art, we're making fun projects, we're making short films, we're making all types of things that I've wanted to for a long time.
Well,
And that
we just had the discussion recently about we sent out a mass email to everybody right before New Year's Eve, just to touch base with our client base. We have a database I can pull from, and we can put everything together. We use whatever the program is to do our email campaigning, doesn't matter. And we kind of debated a little bit about adding our YouTube channels as links on the email.
I still can't believe I approved that. Like,
it's
I
blurring the
suggested
line.
it, and I was like, why did I do that?
But we were blurring the line between what we do creatively on our own, not on our own time. I mean, it's company time, but what we do on that time and what we do for our clients. And At first, you green-lighted it, and I was not about it, but I did it because I was like, you know what, maybe he has a point. And then eventually we flip-flopped, and I was good with it, and you were like, why did I approve that? But I still stand at the, I think it's one of those things where, those are our real, like, day-to-day personality. Like, there's not... I mean, if there's anything fabricated, there might be 10% of a video that might be somewhat fabricated. But like for the most part, it's us. I mean, that's just who we are. And so I got to thinking about it later. I'm like, well, what's the problem with that? You know what I mean? If we lost a client because somebody was like, you guys are the stuff that you do in your own time is goofy, but like, I mean, the stuff that we're doing is cool and fun, and it's what we wanted in the long run anyways. And they help enable that. And I wanted to show them that and show that we're thankful. So, and that's why we put our Christmas video together, so we could say thank you to our clients and appreciate your help. And Tristan was in his usual form.
Yes. All gas, a little brake.
So I don't think it's a bad thing.
I don't think so. And it's funny you talk about the fabrication of it. It's like these behind the scenes. Like one thing that I think I said it in the podcast for 48 Hour the previous year, where we're talking about like what we wanted to learn and take away from it. And it was like I want to get better at like the storytelling and the world building. And for me, the behind the scenes is like a weekly practice for me of like, how can I take this boring day and turn or like uneventful day? It doesn't necessarily boring. It's less eventful than you would expect. And can we turn this into a story or a narrative that people are like, oh, this is relatable. This is understandable. And going back to like, we didn't have time to do this when it was just me and David. Like we maybe one of us could run a camera, but it's like, we can't shoot, edit, put these out regularly. And then Spencer comes along. We got good old Daniel.
Real not Spencer.
Real not Spencer comes along, and then he's able to start telling stories, and he shows us some of his example work, and he's interning, and we get to see a glimpse of what somebody with a good eye for storytelling can do. And it's he's not perfect at it. Like he's still figuring it out, but
none of us were when we were starting out.
Exactly. Exactly. But I'm just saying, like, he didn't come in with previous experience, but some people have a talent where they just have an eye for art, whether that's like painting and like they'll fall in this and you're like, wow, you just picked up a pencil and you made that. And they're like, yeah, I don't practice. That's just what I get bored sometimes. And it's like, the examples of what he sent was like that same equivalent of like talent for, hey, I just went on a trip and I put together a little story. And it's like, most people can't edit, I can shoot with my phone. And so it's like he showed that he could have a little bit of capability there, and then he was able to put a little bit of a story together. It's like, all right, that glimpse of like, I see what his potential is, and it's like, let's bring him in and help hone in those skills. So now he's able to like roughly put together a story of like these uneventful days, and it's like, all right, I can start to see this picture, and I don't get the what is it called? Paralysis, the option paralysis or whatever.
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's where you just get kind of stuck in that groove of just trying to put something together, and you can't even think about what it is. And I get that.
You get overwhelmed about all these different ideas.
I've looked at many a graphic and gone, what are we gonna do?
Yeah. Like there's so many options, and sometimes rules are a good thing whenever, like as an artist, because it's like it helps give you parameters to work in. So it's like, there's this story and you could give it 100,000 different stories, and like he puts it in a direction that narrows it down to like, if you have like a pie graph or whatever, instead of being an entire circle of options, he narrows it down to like 20%. So then I can go in and then finely tune and like spend 4 to 8 hours just focusing on how can I like make this a really good story, as opposed to like
put the old bing bong stamp on it.
Yeah, all the meme meme pass. That's a new thing. We got to meme pass it.
Oh my gosh.
So he's been a great asset to helping me get closer to where I wanted as the creative director with the company to go. And the result of that is the BTS that's coming out this week, and that is I don't know, is that this week? When this episode comes out. So while you're listening to this already, the past couple days, the
renovating of our podcast studio video is out. So if you haven't watched it, go check that out because it will help with context with what we're talking about today. But yes, it is out currently.
Okay. I get really confused on the release date. I know when my BTS come out.
Just ask me before.
I'm not sure when the podcasts are coming out. Well, I was. Let me change it. So we just reviewed it, so it'll be going out tomorrow pending we can re-export it because we just had
it's already out
the nightmare of an issue. Let's talk about the nightmare. What happened, David? Explain it to me like I'm 5.
Just really fast. It came out on Wednesday. This podcast got released on a Friday. It's already out. So
just go
just
on.
Understand it's out.
Well, maybe
there's a link in the description.
It's out.
By the time if we are troubleshooting some things, we want it to be out already.
It's out.
It'll be out. We will fix it. It's a
I'm
simple
freaking
fix.
out.
You were just telling us you weren't freaking out before we started. Anyway, which one do you want to talk about? The one that we fixed already, or this current one that we need to fix?
The current one we need to fix. Our issue with maybe some files getting jumbled up.
Yeah. So we have a file server primarily for archiving our projects once we are done with them. We need a place to throw them there and just get them off our computers so we can work on current projects.
Yeah, then we don't have to have 12 terabyte machines to hold all the data. So
instead of every single computer having like a huge amount of storage, we just have the archive server. It's supposed to be an archive server, which is the issue. Whereas we can technically open up a Final Cut project from the server while you're at the office and work on it. And 90% of the time that works fine, except for the fact that it wasn't really designed for like high-speed video editing. And so there's some strange glitches that happen, especially with Final Cut, because Final Cut is like always constantly saving your work. Which is great compared to like Premiere or like Photoshop, where if your program crashes in the middle of you working on something, you just lose your data. In Final Cut, it likely auto-saved like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
That causes an issue with the file server where it gets confused and it thinks that Final Cut is constantly deleting and making new files. And so sometimes half the project will disappear into the trash bin.
Which is scary.
Yeah. And I need to maybe find a way to make that work. But for every single other use case, aside from Final Cut working off of the server, it's been great because we worked out all the kinks. So right now we have half of a broken project where one of the timelines for this video for the meme edit or whatever you call
the
it.
Meme pass.
So yeah, you have a color pass and all that. You have a meme pass.
Because Final Cut was trying to autosave and either the server or something just wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And it thought it was like, oh, Final Cut deleted all this stuff. It's in the trash bin. And it does that over and over and over as you have it open. And so now it just has like a strange broken project in the trash bin too.
Yeah.
So
I'm just glad it exists.
yes.
I think I might know what caused it
What?
as you were describing it.
Oh man, what'd you do?
When you work off of we work off of external drives, like a little drive, and it's got the little video project on it. And you plug it in your computer, and we work off that. And whenever we're done, we move it to the server, like David was describing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you open Final Cut, the software we edit everything in, you can't close Final Cut or you can't eject the drive while Final Cut's running.
Right.
Well, I was ejecting drives, and then I think I went to shut down something, and it said, "Are you sure you want to cancel tasks in the background?" And I force canceled them in the background, and I thought I was working off the SSDs, but after what you described of like the file, if it's on the server, it writes and deletes and writes and deletes, and the server just starts throwing stuff in the trash. I wonder if that may have had an impact where it was like in the middle of moving stuff to the trash, and I was like, cancel. And it doesn't bring it back from the trash. It just leaves it there and then never created the new data that it was attempting to.
Yeah. So Final Cut got interrupted in what it was doing.
Yeah.
And so now it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you do force a program to stop what it's doing, like just kill it. Yeah, that'll break stuff if it's trying to do something important.
Well,
Yeah.
Like
not
save a file.
always, but it
Most of the
can-
time.
You
Yeah.
don't safely eject your drives either.
I do.
You do now. When I met
I
you,
didn't
you were
understand.
You were a
You were yanking
heathen.
them out.
You were a heathen.
Okay, I had been a Windows user. I turned 30 this year. I'd been a Windows user for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have just always,
Before that, he used Xerox.
yeah, IBM. I just unplug a drive. I'd never had an issue, never had a corrupted drive, never had any problems. And then, I switched to Mac and it's like everything's all sensitive. Like, oh, you must eject this drive so it doesn't get corrupted.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn a whole new thing. It's like you have to hit the button before you can pull a drive out, which is annoying. But
It's in Windows too, but it's super hidden. It's very jank. They
Yeah,
hide it
'cause
in
you
the
don't
bottom
need to
right
do it.
corner. Well,
90% of the time with Windows, you don't need to do it.
I mean, 90% of the time you don't have to. Apple either. I think Final Cut's kind of a rarity.
I don't. It gets mad every single time.
Yeah?
I had tried previously. I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
To unplug anything.
Okay.
I mean, it even gets a little funky with me. Like if I take my laptop home and I switch networks, and then it's like the server didn't get ejected, and that's just a network
Yeah.
drive.
Well, yeah, it's just
I get it. It's
Mac
sensitive.
OS is meant to be easy to use and like prevent the user from doing something horrible. And Windows is just like, I don't give a crap what you're doing. Good luck. It's like, you want to delete everything? You got it.
Yeah.
Delete System 32. I don't give a crap.
Bye.
Apple's like, hey, we made a foolproof
Ow.
software, and then I come along, I'm like, well, try me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to do this? Yes.
Dude,
Are you really sure? Yes.
I see a gray button and a blue button. I just click the blue button. I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not in charge of IT.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That's a good thing.
So yeah, that video is
What video?
out.
It's gotta be out.
The
We have no other
podcast.
You might only
Yeah.
have like half of it, but it's out.
But the saving grace for that video is also Final Cut constantly makes backups of the Final Cut project that has everything but like the source files for your videos, so it's not like consuming your entire hard drive. So you can just take the backup, throw the original media into it, and boom, you have your project again.
Yeah.
So we already did
Yay.
that once because
We're gonna-
Final Cut corrupted an entire project before.
Yeah.
And
We could probably
Yeah.
have a whole episode on some of the funky stuff that Final Cut's been doing lately, but we're not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
do that to you guys.
Instead-
we're going to talk about something fun.
Dude, let's talk. I want to still talk about the BTS because that's coming out and it's been a big deal.
Okay,
'cause,
we're going to talk
sure.
about the BTS. Sorry.
the podcast. So Cole goes out of town for whatever reason. I don't remember
family,
why.
I guess.
Family.
We're not family to him.
I went to Thanksgiving to
go
see my kids.
Yeah,
in
you went to
Florida.
Thanksgiving to see your kids, and David and I were left to finish up the podcast room. And I mean, obviously, it's done because we worked on it really hard. And
It's far from done.
we're recording in it now. Well,
Yeah.
We talked about
the
it.
premise of the video. It exists.
Yes.
And we made
Sorry.
it.
You and I have been having the conversation for the last like 2 weeks, just staring at this room and thinking about ways that we could improve it and how to do so and how to do it on
Yeah.
the cheap. Not on the cheap, sorry, but cost effective. We are definitely not cheap people, but cost effective. So it's just like on the tip of my mind. But yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, they worked very hard.
Sort of.
Yeah, I'm not fired, so I'm here.
Yeah, the video you talk about like laying out the 10% of the video that's like we have to come up with a story, so sometimes we will fabricate some things. And we had
That was fun.
We had David's brother and sister on the podcast, and that'll come out eventually. But at one point she says it was really good behind the scenes video because they got to proof it, and they're like, but your guys' acting is kind of subpar. And I was hurt. I was very hurt
Really?
by when she said that, because to me, most of like
Oh, it's not
very
acting.
very little of it is acting. Like a lot of it is just us being goofy, and maybe that's what she thought was the acting. But I mean, I guess maybe the phone call and stuff like that occasionally. But like a lot of Vitalian does not count as acting, but the BTSs, for what they're worth, it's very little fabrication. Like, I think we did the phone call in the stakes, but everything else about it was very genuine.
Mm-hmm. But the phone call was still one of those things where it's not like we all sat down and said, okay, we're going to have this phone call. I get a text message. First, I got a call out of nowhere, and I'm mini golfing, so I'm like, I'm not going to answer that. And then I get a text, and it's like, you need to call me and be mad at David about the podcast and say you're going to fire him if it doesn't get done. And I was like, what? And then I just made a phone call, and we didn't even have a discussion. Like, we got on the phone, and you were just like in it. And I was like, okay. So, I mean, the only nice thing about that is, I mean, you're seeing the first cut, the first take of us just doing something, so it's natural, natural-ish.
And like, if something's like really off, like it's just the completely wrong tone, I'll be like, hey, can you just sound more angry? But again, it's so few parts of the videos, and it's only to push the story further, but the story already existed. That
makes it fun though. It was it's just something that we have capability of doing, and it made it's my favorite part.
Aside from that, everything in the video that was happening actually had to happen.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we really needed to put the room together, and all the things were done in a specific way for our purposes of using the room and doing what we're doing now.
And we wanted it done that Monday because I think we shot a podcast that Monday or something like that. We needed it done for that week anyway. So, like, me doing something on Sunday wasn't unwarranted because nobody else was in town. Tristan was out doing something. Yeah. So it was just, I was the person who had to do it.
Well, the best part is, like, I feel like everybody's life it feels like a story where you want to work on a project or you want to accomplish something. You set a goal, right?
Yeah.
And then it's so simple. It's point A, point B, you start it, you finish it, and nothing bad ever happens ever. It's like, no. The only difference is we have a camera running whenever we're doing some of this stuff, and we capture, like... shipping, everyone has 2 day shipping, but because it was holiday weekend, it's like it'll be here after Monday, and it's like, well, we already set the stakes if it had to be done Monday. So like it's these small little parts of life that you get to capture, and like they just add to the stakes of whatever it is you set. And if like it's supposed to rain next week and we have to finish building a porch, like that's obviously not a video we would do, but that's something relatable somebody might have, like a house project. It's like if we don't get done before it rains, something bad happens, and it's very frustrating when you're in the moment of working on it, but later on, all these little quirks and stuff, you kind of look back and you laugh. And the difference is we have a video footage that we edit together to kind of embrace and enjoy all these moments where at the time everybody's heated or angry or something, or open that door. It's like, no, sorry, I'm just the documentary in this episode.
No, I thought it went well. It was a good project. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's pretty funny. I like the way we're going with things. I enjoyed it, even though I missed out.
Yeah. Well, we talk about like each episode too. Everybody has like their arcs and stuff. So that was the David episode.
My episode.
It was very David centric.
Yes.
Learned a lot about David.
We're just learning all about me today.
Yeah.
He can teleport.
That's what happens when he gets left alone.
With a camera.
Yeah, with a camera.
Well, it goes back to me thinking I'm not creative. And I was like, I'm just going to be goofy. And I'm going to try to entertain myself.
I liked it.
I better be entertaining for other people, else I'm at a loss.
We'll find out. Hopefully we'll get some comments from Bugle Boy.
Yeah, Bugle Boy.
Yeah, Bugle Boy. Man.
Our number one fan.
Yep.
Let's see what else we got on here.
Can we talk about your Ronin?
We can talk about it if you want.
I think we should talk about it. Take them back. So it's like what, late 2020 or like first half of 21, I think. We did a podcast episode, and we've talked about this before. We did a podcast episode where we talked about a prototype
DJI
camera,
making the perfect camera,
right? Because we have been on the crusade trying to find what would be the perfect camera for us. And it needs, it had all of these parameters. And Tristan laid his out. I talked about mine. I believe David threw in some as well. We talked about all the things that would be nice to have in a system. Yeah. And this was, like I said, I mean, it's been probably a year. And it was just a dream. And it was something we saw, and it looked futuristic, just like a leaked image of something. It looked so futuristic and odd, and we just couldn't quite figure out what was happening with it. And we had just hoped that at some point they would release it. Well, at the end of last year, I got the little DJI invite thing, and they said they were going to have 3 events in a row. And the first event just had like a red ring kind of light play button type thing. And then everybody said that's where their cinema camera is going to come out. And so we all came in the office, we watched the keynote, and all kind of freaked out. And I think TRIFLIX is going to try to invest in one, but
yeah, I'm looking for my notes on it.
Man, you're falling off the screen, Tristan.
I am. Am I pretty low?
quit slouching.
Sun's getting real
Slouchy
low.
boy. Yeah.
Season 2.
But yeah, so this camera is absolutely insane. It's called the Ronin 4D. DJI makes it, and it kind of checks a lot of boxes for us because, I mean, one of the largest factors for us is how do we get all the capabilities we need in a smaller form factor that is cost effective, that also has some interoperability with other, devices in the office or on set, because it's kind of one of those things that's a little scary if you don't, because especially we're not like this high budget film set type of company at this moment in time, so we have to think about what can work in our favor and what helps us to be able to make the next product better. And we believe that this is one of the things that might be able to do that. So, we're kind of taking it into consideration. But from what you can remember,
I would have loved to do a whole dedicated on this, but regardless, the camera itself, like, we're looking for a camera that like fits our budget and everything. And as we were like breaking it down, it's like, if this camera can do everything that it claims, it's worth its weight in gold, because it is doing the functionality of several different tools that you would have on set. It's like doing a camera and a gimbal that would stabilize it, and it's doing built-in ND, so you wouldn't need ND filters. It's got remote control, so like if somebody's away, they can have a remote viewfinder, they can control the settings. So it had so much potential, and then it comes out and it does all those things. And then it's like, well, does it have autofocus? And it actually did have autofocus. And can you control the aperture from the handles and stuff? It's like, you can't. And not only can you control it from there, you can control it remotely. So this camera started being able to do everything that we hoped for. And now the only problem is it's unavailable until February. And then even then, it's probably going to be sold out for a while, just like Blackmagic Pocket camera when that came out. That was unavailable for like 6 months. So,
and that's the only issue with having, number one, we are seeing all industries still have supply chain issues, especially with cameras, because if you didn't know, video is getting more and more popular every year, and it's a big deal. So being able to make good video matters. And this has put that cinema camera level of technology in a wider group's hands. And so anytime you're going to have supply chain issues, plus you're now widening your demographic, your audience, we're going to have some issues getting our hands on it. We're in a queue, right?
Pre-ordered?
Is that how it works?
We are pre-ordered, but we haven't paid. So they have like a hard pre-order and like a soft pre-order.
Oh, okay.
So we're in queue, but we're not at the front of the list.
I gotcha.
So
for the camera specifically, what problems does it solve for us? Or what issues do we have with our current cameras?
All of them.
What is
all of the problems have been solved. It's the holy grail.
What's the top 3 problems
Eternal youth
that you're looking forward to not having to deal with anymore?
Okay. Balancing a gimbal is one. Gimbals make for really good shots. It stabilizes everything so that your shots look smooth. However, balancing them, as simple as it is compared to 5 years ago, it's still too much work, because like as a creative person, it's like, if you're an artist, like, I just want to pick up a paper and a pencil and start drawing. It's like, well, as a videographer, I just want to pick up a camera and start shooting.
Right.
Like, to me, I want it to be that simple, because when I want to tell a story, it's like, what can get me from point A to point B the quickest with the least amount of like interruptions? So not having to balance or like adjust little movements of the camera like you you put it on top of the gimbal and you slide it left, right, up, down, forward, whatever. And all those little moments of time really make a difference. Every time you swap out lenses, every time you have to change a battery, every time you move the zoom on the lens, or anytime you adjust, like you want to plug in an HDMI or a microphone, all of those add 2 to 5 minutes. And on an 8-hour day, you could be adding easily, I mean, all the lens changes, all the battery changes, that's at least probably 45 to an hour and a half of time that like I could have been doing literally anything else. I could have been relaxing, so I could focus before I do the next thing.
Well, that's part of why we show up so early, because I mean, when we have to set up the full rig, it takes time.
Yeah. And this one you pull out of a box, and you still have to balance one axis for the lens.
Yep.
But it's just forward and backwards by the weight of the lens. And honestly, if you buy their kit lenses, they're all the exact same size. We probably won't buy them. But if you chose to, if we had the budget and the desire to, we could simplify even more, where every time you swap the lens, they're always identical, so you never have to. So it just simplifies. It takes out a lot of steps.
Well, and that's with the gimbal also being integrated. It's one less box, one less thing to assemble.
Yeah.
It's built into the front of the camera. It's there. It's done. There's no other thinking about it. And it's a cost-effective way to look at it as well. That it's something that's built into the cost of the camera. One less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
Because that takes a hot minute.
Yeah, definitely.
So the first one would be what? The gimbal. It helps the setup.
Yeah. So
how about
the
Cole
balancing.
do second one?
Second one. I mean, so ease of use, I guess, technically would be the first. I think the second thing that it helps us with is the wider range of shooting capabilities. And that's whether it's codec or sensor size or the resolution. Because it shoots at, 6K?
Well, there's a higher version, but the one we would get is 6K.
Yeah, we're not getting... What's the other one? 8? Is it 12?
8K for $12,000.
Okay, yeah, no. We were like, and we're out.
Yeah.
It would be cool, but no, that's not in the budget. I think that portion of it, it all plays into, color depth, your bit rates, the dynamic range, all the things that help us to sustain a better image and also take away time on the back end of editing. The more image adjustability you have, a more playroom, wiggle room you have on an image, sometimes, the quicker we can get something put out, the lighting, the colors, all the things can look like they're supposed to, in maybe a quicker fashion. So I believe that's one of the things, that's why we've wanted a cinema camera. And it's video dedicated. So that helps. It's not trying to do 80 things at once. It's a video camera.
It's not for stills.
Yeah, it's not for stills, which is good. We've tried to balance the two because our cameras currently work in both realms. And the thing is no matter what you do, I think we all know that when a product is trying to be multiple things at once, it can't do all of them good.
Perfectly.
Yeah,
right?
perfectly.
And this is a camera that is closer to perfect than any other video camera for a small team has gotten.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're a full team, maybe the RE, like the $100,000 cameras with $100,000 lenses, because you got 8 people in the crew, they're larger, so everybody can touch the tool they need to.
Yep.
But for a small team, this is the closest we've seen to, I'm a one-man crew and I can shoot the entire thing myself. I can lav them and I can have the audio go straight into camera, which I don't know if that's my third one, but I think that one is... Audio's a really big deal for us.
Yeah.
And syncing audio.
I could see that being the third one. I mean, that's something we've talked about for a very long time. We're still debugging audio in general with our current setup. Just day in and day out, it's just always trying to figure out how can we get the highest end audio and how do we also help the post-production side of it? Because again, we're usually strapped for time and we have a small amount of hands on each project, and it just helps us to be able to get a project done in a quicker and much more efficient
and that's
time meeting.
For client projects, it's like, how can we achieve the same or better results in a faster amount of time?
Yeah.
And we want to move on
Yeah.
and have time to work on all the fun stuff.
Well, it helps us with, I think it shows, it also helps to ratchet us up in the professionalism category.
They were in and out in half hour instead of, maybe our previous setup would have taken 3.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but it's just a human effect. When you show up with something that looks like this thing does,
oh yeah,
people tend to take you a little bit more seriously.
Yeah,
because there tends to be now a little bit more often than not a negative connotation to the group of young people showing up with their DSLRs and their vlogging and making videos for people, and it's like we're on the other side of all that we do, like we're serious with our clients and we want to help make good videos. So, if we're not making money, we can't do all the other things we want to do. Yeah. So it's an integral part to the business.
Managing expectations just on that side is a real thing. And like a lot of professions struggle with that. Where like this something may be better, but it doesn't look as good when you're using it or whatever.
Right.
It sounds like evil data.
Yeah. A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It really does go hand in hand. Nice way to pull it full circle. But it's true though. We know that these cameras that we're shooting on currently, the Nikons, they have been worth their weight in gold over the period of time that we have been using them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, eventually you grow out of hardware and things and you're trying to make things better. But we know what their capability is, and the capability is very high. And some people just, I understand that it's one of those things like, I don't think electric cars are worth it. But it's like, we know, we use them on a day-to-day basis. So it's still hard to walk in and pull 2 little DSLRs out of a bin and again, get taken seriously. Yeah. So, it's worth it. And we know that the money that we will spend on the camera, we know the period of time that it would take us and the amount of jobs to be able to have that camera pay for itself and then start to be able to make money, which is your return on investment. And we know that we can recoup that and start to build upon that faster than with a lot of other systems. I think the new Red came out and yes, it's cheaper than the predecessors, but it's still $30,000.
Yeah.
And that's just body. That's no lenses, no media, no screen, no cord, no audio module, none of the things. And all of their stuff is, it's like you buy a 512 SSD that plugs in the side of this thing and they're like $800.
Yeah.
Or you could just grab one of your own and plug it in. Like they've made it very simple to use.
Well,
like,
yes,
you can use your own lenses. You don't have to use their proprietary DL mounts. Like they're very kind to their user base and they know who their targeted demographic is. You're
talking about the DJI, correct? Yeah. Mm-hmm. They've done a very nice job of trying to help out that level of creator, which is cool. And we're looking very much forward to learning the camera system. We're a bunch of techies. We love this stuff. And the fact that we would have the ability to make films and creative works with this camera as well on our own time, it's exciting. It's very exciting.
Yeah. I think I want to run through
some final thoughts.
What are all of the things, like if we wanted to go to a shoot, what all do I have to bring versus this one camera? Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, so you're talking about you show up with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, like what you would see at a wedding, somebody's holding. It's like a small little camera. You want to be taken seriously, and you can get really good results with that camera, but it requires you to have a ton of attachments and cables and plugs and all this extra stuff that goes into it, as opposed to this one camera that you would show up. And if you're in our case, we would use one lens for it that zooms so we could get all the range that we need. So one camera with one lens, and you can do all the same things, right? So if we wanted to go to a shoot and do a good job, we would have to bring the Ronin, which is our stabilizer, our gimbal. And if we wanted to have a Z-axis, we would have to buy a backpack piece that would stabilize it vertically. So that's 2 things. And then you'd
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's only 3-axis.
Yeah. So it has the vertical with it too, right? You'd have to get a lens. Lens for lens. You'd have to get your variable ND filters because this has them all built in. You would have to have you'd have to have a follow focus on your camera. This one has it built in. You would have to, our camera doesn't even have LiDAR, which is what helps the autofocus work in the dark. So our autofocus is really bad in the dark. It's already an improvement vertically there.
Well, it's bad in general, though.
It's pretty bad.
We've had a lot of issues with our autofocus, and that's a Nikon problem. Again, it's done fine, but again, it's one of those things that would make a huge difference in our final product.
Yeah.
So yes, so
yeah.
said,
So
lenses.
just one more thing, and then it has a monitor with it, so we record with an external monitor that allows us to do all the wide color gamuts and profiles and like all the things that make it real pretty. And this camera does it built in. So that's the arm that attaches that, the cables that attach it. It's just all these little knickknacks, the extra batteries that power that, as well as the battery that powers the camera, any microphones that plug on top of it. So by the end of it, you have 3 or 4 boxes, and everything is like has like their own place. So you have to open up all these boxes, you lugged in, and you start combining all these things. And you shoot after, you know, it takes you maybe 2-3 trips to carry everything in. You start building it, and in that time, you could have carried in an audio bag and a camera box. And you open up the camera box, you mic the person, and then you would connect the microphones into the camera itself, so it's wireless. You'd put up your lights. And I mean, assuming that their environments, you know, doesn't need a whole lot of work of you moving stuff around, like you're ready to shoot in maybe 10 minutes as opposed to, well, maybe 15 minutes as opposed to 45 to an hour.
Yeah.
And
Which is
like,
huge.
Plus the cost difference, like all the stuff that we've bought going into it.
Oh, that's true.
To get started with this camera and like an audio system, you could do it for under 10 grand. Easily under 10 grand.
Yep.
And and that would have like long zoom lenses. So something like for maybe a wedding where I'd be further back, or maybe a commercial where we're tighter. So you could have all these ranges as well. And to get that equivalent of where we are now with all the stuff that we've bought, it's probably about the same price, to be honest. Maybe
For sure.
Maybe like 20%
so.
more, but just the convenience of it all being in one box.
Well, yeah, and I mean, so you take that 20% more that it might be, and then you factor in the time that it saves you and what that time is costing you on set, and you're probably still ahead.
Yeah. So I know it probably sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but the main thing is like it's just a cool camera that simplifies what we do, so we have more time to spend on literally anything else.
Yes.
Whether that's fun stuff or administrative, boring, technical stuff, or fixing projects because our software's bunk.
Yep.
Bunk. So yeah,
It's fun. It's a key part of the evolution of the company. So it's you know, it also enables us to do some projects that we probably wouldn't have been able to do before. So hopefully that also means a little bit more cash and money in the bank.
Cash money. Woo.
So we can pay these employees.
Oh yeah.
Lame.
Love being paid.
Any other cool projects coming up? Any other cool projects?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. It's just the beginning of the year. So CES is going on, Consumer Electronics Show. There's a lot of things that are still yet to probably come or get announced for this coming year. Which, by the way, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Just made me think of it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes. So yeah, no, I think that's good for today. I think we've made our point, and we appreciate everyone who's listening. If you haven't told a friend or a family member, tell them. If you think it's interesting, they might find something interesting.
Yeah.
We'd love to bend their ear a little bit, and we're very focused this year. We've been working really hard on everything to push the content. So YouTube channels, TRIFLIX Films, TRIFLIX Team, and TRIFLIX Cast.
Why do you have 3 channels? That's dumb. Why would you have 3 channels?
Yeah, we find it much easier to be able to segment the type of media that we're putting out there.
That makes so much more sense.
So it's much more concise, everyone. So
yeah,
go to YouTube, check everything out. TRIFLIX Cast, Instagram. We got TRIFLIX LLC on our regular Instagram. Go check everything out there. Go to Facebook, TRIFLIX.com. If you want to hire us, we'd love to work with you. If you just want to come on the podcast and talk to us and be a guest, hey, we're here for that too. So Check us out.
Check us out. And don't forget, have a good day.
I like that.